The hall was buzzing with excitement, filled with laughter and soft chatter. People were dressed in their best clothes, the kind that sparkled under the warm lights of chandeliers hanging from high ceilings. There was a sense of joy, but also the faint tension of competition. It was a night for music, celebration, and perhaps even a little bit of showing off. Among all the guests, one young woman stood out. She had a cheerful, mischievous smile, and her eyes twinkled as she watched everyone around her. Her laughter was light, almost musical, as she leaned over toward a group of friends, teasing them about their piano skills. "I bet none of you can impress me tonight," she said, her voice carrying across the hall. She laughed and spun around, glancing at the grand piano at the corner of the stage. It gleamed under the lights, its polished surface reflecting the crowd. "If anyone can play well enough, I will marry them," she said, throwing her hands up in mock challenge. Her words were playful, meant to amuse and provoke. No one expected her to be serious. Everyone laughed along with her, clinking their glasses and shaking their heads, amused by her boldness. Yet among all the chatter and laughter, one person quietly observed from the sidelines. He was a janitor, a man who usually worked behind the scenes, sweeping floors, wiping surfaces, and ensuring that everything stayed clean and in order. His clothes were simple, his hands rough from years of hard work, but there was a calmness about him that made people notice him without realizing why. He watched the girl laugh and speak, listened to the words she tossed lightly into the air, and felt a quiet curiosity stir within him. Unlike the others, he did not laugh or roll his eyes. He only stood there, his eyes fixed on the piano as though drawn to it by some invisible force. No one paid him much attention. Most guests didn't even know his name. They barely noticed him when he moved quietly around the room, cleaning a spill here, straightening a chair there. Yet that night something different seemed to stir within him, something that had nothing to do with his job or the chores he did every day. It was a pull, a gentle nudge from somewhere deep inside, telling him to move closer to the piano, to sit down, to play. He had always loved music. It was his secret, his refuge, his passion that he never spoke about. When the world seemed busy and loud, music was the one thing that allowed him to breathe, to feel, to exist fully. The girl, still laughing, continued to tease her friends. "Come on, someone show me what you've got," she said, waving her hands dramatically. "If you can make me believe, maybe I'll, keep my promise." Her laughter rang across the hall, light and playful. The crowd chuckled, but there was no one brave enough to answer her challenge. Some shrugged, some shook their heads, some exchanged embarrassed glances. Music, after all, was not something everyone could perform beautifully on the spot. And then, slowly, almost imperceptibly, the janitor moved. He stepped away from the shadows of the corner where he had been standing. His movements were quiet, deliberate, without any rush. He approached the grand piano, and a hush began to settle over the room, almost as if the air itself was holding its breath. People noticed him now, murmuring softly among themselves. Who was this man? A janitor, surely, they thought. What could he possibly do at the piano? The girl, noticing him for the first time, tilted her head in curiosity. Her smile was still playful, but there was a flicker of interest in her eyes. He stood before the piano, his fingers hovering above the keys for a moment. The crowd's laughter faded, replaced by a tense silence. Something about the moment felt important, as if time had slowed down just enough to let everyone take in the significance of what was about to happen. The girl's laughter softened into a small, incredulous gasp. She had not expected anyone to respond. Certainly not him, a man who seemed so ordinary, so invisible until now. But there he was, calm and steady, ready to play. The janitor sat down on the piano bench. His posture was relaxed yet confident, a quiet assurance in the way he carried himself. He took a deep breath, and his fingers gently rested on the keys. No one in the hall moved. Even the waiters paused in their tasks. The musicians who were supposed to perform later held their instruments still, captivated by the moment. It was as if the piano had become a magnet, drawing every eye, every heartbeat, every whisper of anticipation toward him. The first note sounded. Soft, delicate, and precise. It was not just a sound, it was a statement, a declaration that he had something to share, something powerful hidden behind his quiet exterior. The girl's eyes widened. She leaned forward slightly, her laughter replaced with astonishment. The melody he played was familiar yet breathtakingly beautiful. It filled the hall with a warmth that made people pause, made them forget their conversations, their glasses, their own small concerns. As he continued to play, the janitor's skill became evident. His hands moved gracefully, each note carefully placed, each chord resonating with emotion. The music was not just technical. It was alive. It told a story without words, a story of patience, of hidden talent, of quiet dreams nurtured in the corners of life. The girl felt her heart tighten, an unexpected emotion rising within her. She had not anticipated this. She had thought this was a joke, a challenge, a playful tease. But the music was real, raw, and magnificent. The audience was mesmerized. Some leaned closer, others closed their eyes, letting the sound wash over them. There was no applause yet, no reaction beyond silent awe. The janitor played on, seemingly unaware of the attention, absorbed in the connection between his fingers and the keys. Every note carried a story, a feeling, a truth that no one could ignore. Even those who had scoffed at the girl's challenge now found themselves holding their breath. Caught in the spell of his music, the girl felt something shift inside her. Her laughter had vanished completely. She had underestimated him, underestimated the depth of his talent, the strength of his spirit. She had challenged him without thinking, without realizing the quiet brilliance that could exist in someone so ordinary in appearance. And now, sitting there, watching and listening, she realized how wrong she had been. There was a lesson here she hadn't expected to learn that night. Wrapped in a melody that spoke louder than words ever could. As the final notes lingered in the air. The hall remained silent for a moment, as if everyone collectively held their breath, unsure if they dared to break the magic. Then, slowly, the first clap sounded, tentative yet full of admiration. It was followed by more claps, cheers, and whispered exclamations of wonder. The girl's eyes were wide, glistening with emotion. She felt a mixture of surprise, respect, and a strange flutter in her chest that she couldn't quite name. The janitor, calm and composed, simply stood and nodded slightly, acknowledging the applause without any hint of pride or arrogance. No one had expected this. The joke had turned into something extraordinary. The laughter had turned into awe. And the girl, who had thought she was teasing someone for fun, now realized that life often surprises us in ways we never see coming. Sometimes the quietest people, the ones we overlook, hold the most remarkable stories, the most extraordinary talents, and the most profound truths. And as the hall continued to buzz, the girl felt a sense of humility, a newfound respect for the janitor, and a realization that her playful challenge had led her to witness something she would never forget. Something that reminded everyone present that talent and heart often hide in the most unexpected places, waiting for a chance to shine. The applause continued to ripple through the hall, louder with every passing second. People were rising to their feet, clapping, cheering, some wiping away tears, others whispering in awe. The girl stood frozen for a moment, unable to speak. Her laughter from earlier had vanished completely, replaced by a mixture of astonishment, admiration, and something new and unexplainable warmth in her chest. She had thought her challenge was a joke, a playful test meant to entertain, not to uncover something extraordinary. Yet what she had just witnessed left her speechless. The janitor, still seated at the piano, remained calm and collected. There was no smugness in his eyes, no prideful smile, only a quiet dignity. He had played not for recognition or applause, but simply because the music lived inside him. Every note, every chord had been a piece of his heart laid bare. The way he held himself afterward, acknowledging the crowd without fanfare, reflected a humility so rare it touched everyone watching. The girl slowly approached him. Unsure of what words could possibly match what she felt. I didn't expect that, she said softly, her voice trembling slightly. I never imagined anyone could play like that. You were incredible. Her usual teasing tone was gone, replaced by sincere admiration. She felt embarrassed, even a little guilty for having laughed at him before. The janitor gave a small, gentle smile. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I've always loved music. That's all it is for me." He brushed a hand across his uniform, a modest gesture. There was no boastfulness, no need for validation. His music had spoken for him, and that was enough. The sincerity in his voice made her realize that she had underestimated the quiet strength in people who often go unnoticed. Around them, the crowd was still in awe. People whispered to one another, sharing stories of what they had just witnessed. The atmosphere had transformed. The night that had begun as a light-hearted social gathering now felt almost sacred. Everyone present seemed to understand, even if only subconsciously, that they had seen something rare, a genuine display of talent and passion. The girl felt herself drawn closer to the piano. She watched his fingers move delicately over the keys as if practicing once more, reliving the performance in private. "Have you always played like that?" she asked, curiosity overtaking her initial shyness. He looked up, slightly startled by her question. "For as long as I can remember," he replied. "I've played whenever I could. Mostly alone, at home, or in quiet corners like this. I never thought anyone would care to listen." His voice was soft, almost hesitant, but full of truth. There was no pretense, just a man who had lived quietly with his passion, waiting for a moment to share it. She smiled, this time warmly, a smile full of respect and genuine admiration. "I care," she said simply. "And I know others do too. You've made this night unforgettable. You've reminded all of us that true talent isn't always where we expect it to be." His smile widened, though still modest. There was a calmness in his eyes, a quiet satisfaction, not from applause or recognition, but from having shared a part of himself. He had turned a playful joke into a moment that touched everyone. For him, that was enough. In the days following the event, the story of the janitor's piano performance spread quietly, like ripples in water. People who had been present recounted it to their friends, who told others, until even those who hadn't attended were hearing about the man who had turned a joke into something extraordinary. Yet the janitor remained humble. He continued his work quietly, sweeping the floors, tidying the hall, performing his duties without fanfare. But now, when people passed by, they paused, looked at him differently, and saw the quiet brilliance that had been hidden in plain sight. The girl found herself thinking about the performance often. She recalled the first note, delicate yet confident, that seemed to hold a world of emotion within it. She remembered how his fingers moved, precise yet tender, communicating feelings without a single word. She had gone into the evening with a light-hearted challenge, expecting humor and maybe a little fun, but she had been given an experience she would never forget. The music had touched her deeply, and she realized she had learned a profound lesson about humility, talent, and human potential. Weeks passed, and the two began to form a quiet friendship. She would stop by the hall from time to time, bringing small treats or simply watching him play. He would sit at the piano and play softly, sometimes for her, sometimes just for himself. Their conversations grew slowly, filled with laughter, curiosity, and shared reflections about life, dreams, and the unexpected ways people can surprise us. In the presence of music, they both discovered a deep understanding that transcended words. One evening, as the hall was empty except for the two of them, she spoke again, her voice carrying a quiet honesty. "At night I laughed at you, thinking it was all just a joke. But I was wrong. You've shown me something important, something I'll never forget." He looked at her, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "We all have something hidden inside us," he said softly. "Sometimes it just takes the right moment, the right audience, or the right opportunity to bring it out." She nodded, realizing that his words applied to much more than just music. They applied to life itself, the ways people are judged too quickly, the hidden talents and kindness that often go unnoticed, and the unexpected moments that can reveal beauty where no one thought to look. The girl's respect for him grew with each passing day. She began to see that true talent and true heart are rarely loud or boastful. They are quiet, persistent, and often unnoticed until the moment arrives when they can shine. She also noticed how the janitor's humility made him even more remarkable. He didn't seek praise, yet he inspired admiration. He didn't crave attention, yet he left an unforgettable impact on everyone who witnessed him. Over time, the hall became a place of quiet connection for them. Sometimes they would sit together after the day's work was done, and he would play music that spoke of memories, dreams, and emotions too complex for words. She would listen, absorbing each note, reflecting on her own life, and recognizing how rare it is to encounter someone so gifted yet so humble. Their friendship deepened, built on mutual respect, admiration, and the understanding that life's most extraordinary moments often arrive unannounced. She thought back to that first night repeatedly, the laughter, the playful challenge, and the unexpected brilliance that followed. She realized that life is full of surprises, and often the most unforgettable experiences come from those we least expect. The janitor had taught her an unspoken lesson: never underestimate anyone, because beneath the surface, extraordinary things can reside. Even years later, the memory of that night remained vivid. People who had attended still spoke about the janitor and his remarkable performance, about the girl who had laughed and witnessed a moment of true human brilliance. The janitor continued his quiet work, but with a confidence that came from knowing he had touched hearts without needing recognition or fame. The girl, too, carried the memory with her. It reminded her to value the quiet, to see beyond appearances, and to cherish moments of genuine human connection. She realized that life's magic often comes from small, unexpected moments, like a humble janitor playing the piano with all his heart, transforming a simple joke into a story that would inspire people for years to come. Through that experience, both of them understood the extraordinary power of passion, humility, and courage. The janitor's music had not only revealed his hidden talent, but had also touched souls, inspiring awe, respect, and reflection. And the girl, who had initially laughed, learned that life's greatest lessons often arrive in the most surprising ways. The hall, the piano, the laughter, and the music became symbols of hope, perseverance, and the beauty of the human spirit. They reminded everyone present that brilliance can come from the most unexpected places, that kindness and humility are as powerful as talent, and that one small act, one note, one song, one courageous step can leave a lasting impact on countless lives. The girl never forgot the janitor's performance. It became a story she would tell for years, sharing not just the music but the lesson behind it. She spoke about the unexpected beauty that lies in quiet dedication, about how we often overlook ordinary people who harbor extraordinary talents, and about the way a single night can change perspectives and hearts forever. And in the end, the janitor's quiet music became a symbol of hope, inspiration, and the profound truth that the human spirit, when nurtured and expressed, can move hearts, change minds, and remind everyone that life's most beautiful moments often arrive when we least expect them.